even require detailed research to do it. And that's the point. They know that this Paris climate...
So what are they going to do next, and what's their next big power grab?
Next big thing is the climate conference in Paris. The Paris Climate Conference is the real big one. That's in December this year. It's the 23rd, I think it is, in the series of annual UN climate bedwetters conferences where tens of thousands of activists basically go there and a few dozen national negotiators go there. And they now have in place a plan which will create what they're no longer going to call a global government. The term government was used in the 2009 Copenhagen draft, which failed when China blew it out of the water. But now China's been nobbled by Obama because he's exempted them from having to make any cuts in emissions. Whatever Paris actually does will make no difference to the climate, even if CO2 had an influence to the degree that they say it does, which we now know it doesn't. But they're still going to set up their global government. They're calling it this time, rather coyly, a governing body, so that they can easily change it into a government later. Exactly the same as the EU. It's the same model. They started by requiring that nations should report various data to them. They then gradually increased the obligations to report, so that you're having to spend vast amounts of money collecting perfectly useless data about how much CO2 you emit and how much you scavenge back by planting trees. I mean, nonsensical stuff. And they make the nations do that. Then they make the nations comply with various targets, which the nations first of all voluntarily put forward, and then gradually they become compulsory. That's the stage they're reaching now in Paris. They have set up in the meantime something like 1,000 new supranational bureaucracies to be the sinews of this global government. They are already in place. They were put in place by the Cancun Treaty.
Well, Lord Monckton, we're going to have you back up in the near future to break all that down. Scienceandpublicpolicy.org. You're on the front line of fighting global tyranny, and we salute you for your great work with the UKIP and others on forcing an awakening to the fact that you're under EU dictatorship. Thank you so much. Great job. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much, and God bless you. God bless America. We will keep the world free, whether the powers that be like it or not.
Hoorah to that. We'll be back. Tons of news straight ahead.
We're on the
Chemical and Biological Weapons Treaty. He also went to the quasi-classified Harvard PhD program that only has one PhD a year that Kissinger and others have gone through, so he was given the inside scoop on how stuff really operates. Francis A. Boyle's coming on because he's an expert on the anthrax attacks that happened. And he can get into the Pentagon mailing anthrax all over the U.S. and all over the world, weaponized anthrax, what's really behind that. Then we'll get his breakdown on the TPP, on all the news coming out and the documents coming out that the West is running the Syrian rebels, including the, quote, radicals that make up the vast majority, while saying that we should all give up our freedoms to be protected from the very radicals that they run. So that is coming up for 30 minutes in the next hour, just like Monckton joined us for a half hour. Then in that last half hour, I've got a special report Jakari Jackson did dealing with just the out-of-control corruption with big charities and how United Way, Red Cross, and others keep more than half the money. They give money to gun control, you name it. But because they're too big to fail, people still just keep giving them money. And it's the same thing that we see across the board. Meanwhile, they're talking about Senator Marco Rubio's wife and he both have together, since they've been married more than a decade, 17 traffic infractions. What is that, less than one a year? And I don't like Rubio for open borders, being anti-gun, being a globalist, being pro-Big Brother. Attack him on, but it just shows how, oh, look, 17 traffic infractions, oh my gosh. This is just amazing. Oh, my, that's really big news. And did you hear about Jenner? Yeah, he wears a wig now. Wow. And why don't they call all the guys from Police Academy where they dress up like women and got beards? Why don't they give them Nobel Prizes or something? It's not that I'm even bashing the guy who thinks she's a woman. It's that it's the top story in the country for the last few weeks, and it just doesn't even matter. It's just stupid. Like stories about traffic tickets. While we're going under a global treaty, the TPP, that codifies every nightmare you can imagine into law. Before I go any further, I want to get into this whole soccer situation. I've talked some about it, but now it's really clear. Just a week ago, it was a conspiracy theory to say that the U.S. was doing this, the people that run the U.S. were doing this, to claw away the World Cup from Russia. Now they said that's in question whether they'll get the World Cup. I tell you what, we can clean up soccer when you clean up the NFL and boxing and everything else that's so corrupt in this country. And it seems like, yeah, America's going to get us the game. I mean, give me a break, folks. The city of Austin paid hundreds of millions of dollars to build the F1 track outside town and give Ecclestein or Steen, or it's really hard name to pronounce, Ecclestone, Steiny, or whatever, however you say it, Ecclestone, so he could give his daughters each $400 million houses or whatever. And look, if it wasn't taxpayer money from all over the world where they give them the land, pay for everything, then he gives deals to the politicians locally to get some of the money back through corporate deals he gives them. I mean, this corruption is endemic. So it's the equivalent going after the Soccer Federation of going after Rubio for parking tickets. But don't worry, the NBA says no suggestion of FIFA-style corruption in basketball. Oh, even when you get cities to build you these billion-dollar stadiums? Multi-billion-dollar in the case of football? And then I got to pay for it, just like I got to pay for sex changes, abortions. Now they're talking about making people pay for nose jobs. I don't want to pay for you chopping your nose off. Meanwhile, I know so many people having their houses taken by the IRS because they've lost their jobs and can't pay, and people getting kicked off Social Security and can't get health care. And they go in and say, "Where's my free health care?" And they laugh at them. Obamacare isn't free health care, scum. How about a double or triple your prices? They got rid of the charity care now under Obamacare. They don't have to give you health care at charity hospitals anymore that run as profit centers. Most hospitals are charity hospitals. That's how it was always run. We had the best health care in the world until 50 years ago. Government corporations got involved. Insurance companies got involved. Now it's really bad. We got still some amazing health care sometimes, but the system itself is out of control. And then people think we're going to get reformed by a group of crooks like Boehner and Obozo. And again, I like to call him O-Vomit, O-whatever, but really, he's very successful. So I want to play John Bound's report on this because it is a major distraction. And then I'm going to get into, when is it a crime to withdraw money from your bank? And more. Here is that report.
We are here to announce the unsealing of charges and the arrest of individuals as part of our long-running investigation into bribery and corruption in the world of organized soccer.
It must have been Let's Pretend We Work for the American People Day over at the Department of Justice. Newly appointed United States Attorney General Loretta Lynch dropped the hammer on World Cup soccer executives, issuing warrants for their arrest regarding the accumulation of over $150 million received by employing methods of racketeering, money laundering, and wire fraud. The head of the snake of this notorious soccer empire, Sepp Blatter, will of course remain untouched. Bread and circus historically serves as a huge distraction while the real criminals mingle in smoke-filled rooms holding the puppet strings of law enforcement that knows full well how they arrived at their position and where the real line is drawn. And so it goes. While the world watches soccer executives scurrying out like rats, no arrests, no warrants, nothing is done to the instigators of a far greater recent scandal that dealt punishing blows to the economy. 6 banks have agreed to pay a combined $5.8 billion to the Justice Department and other regulators. 5 of them have pled guilty to criminal charges. Citicorp, JP Morgan, Barclays, and RPS are pleading guilty to charges tied to Forex manipulation, while UBS is pleading guilty to interest rate manipulation charges. They have each agreed to a 3-year corporate probation period. No scurrying executives, no impending jail time, just a laughable corporate probation period and fines. Who cares if executives of the most powerful banks colluded on rigging interest rates to make billions of dollars? The DOJ doesn't seem to mind that the Department of Defense spent $4 million on taxpayer-funded credit cards for personal charges, including $3.2 million of it at casinos, and $100,000 at strip clubs by 646 government cardholders. While the average American family is seeing their health care costs skyrocket, the government throws away billions per year on waste and fraud. Those very same officials spending our taxpayer dollars will be right on board once the cash trough is replaced by digital currency, and that is coming sooner than most people think. A new age of economic totalitarianism, as highlighted by economist Martin Armstrong, is being discussed with zeal in secret meetings in London. Armstrong writes, this idea of eliminating cash first floated as the normal trial balloon to see how the people would take it. Kenneth Rogoff of Harvard University and William Buter, the chief economist at Citigroup, first launched the concept. Their claims have been widely hailed, and their papers are now the foundation for the new age of economic totalitarianism that confronts us. Rogoff and Buter have laid the groundwork for the end of much of our freedom, and one day will be considered the new Marx with hindsight. Considerations of their arguments have shown how governments can seize all economic power and destroy cash in the process of eliminating all rights. Physical paper money provides the check against negative interest rates, for if they become too great, people will simply withdraw their funds and hoard cash. Furthermore, paper currency allows for bank runs. Eliminate paper currency and what you end up with is the elimination of the ability to demand to withdraw funds from a bank. Our Defense Department squanders billions of taxpayer dollars.
We wanted to know how much taxpayer money the government spends on these mysterious micro purchases. So we found out. Our review found about $20 billion in just about the course of a year. We asked all of these other major federal agencies based here in D.C. for their micro purchase shopping lists, and all refused.
The same cadre of criminals that crashed the economy in 2008 were merely slapped on the old wrist after being caught rigging interest rates. And world governments are colluding to imprison the population with a digital currency that will enslave anyone that doesn't adhere to the impending New World Order system run by a group of elite scum that would become far more powerful than anything we have ever imagined in our worst nightmares.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, as it is called, is an all-out assault on our national sovereignty. It would unconstitutionally transfer legislative powers from the U.S. Congress, our state legislatures, our city and county governments, to multinational corporations and unaccountable international bureaucrats at the World Trade Organization.
And Americans are still off in la-la land thinking that United States has the sovereignty. You know, the International Organization of Securities Commission regulates our market, and there's a Basel Commission on Banking and the BIS, which Bank of International Settlements. These, the Federal Reserve is part of BIS. It regulates banking. You know, the International Criminal Court of Europe has jurisdiction over here in the United States. So the American people need to wake up that the sovereignty of the United States is gone.
Global government's not coming, it's here.
Exactly.
But twisting a few media moguls' arms to squeeze out bribes within an industry built on kicking a ball around a field is far more important. John Bound, Infowars.com.
Very powerful, true journalism report by John Bound of Infowars.com. Great job, John Bound. And that aired last night on the Nightly News. You're really missing hardcore information. The hour-long Nightly News, 7 o'clock Central every evening with our great team of reporters and researchers and all the folks that are behind the scenes here. I want to go through news as much as I can. I mentioned the war on cash. When is it a crime to withdraw money from your own bank account? I want to get into this Paul Watson article that's huge. TPP emails show CEO joked about making royalty payments to U.S. officials. Going on to say these are our rules, brag chemical company boss on how they're basically writing the international law that you can't see. So we'll get to all that, but there's a Fox News story here that I could spend 10 hours on because I call this a Rosetta Stone article. and I talk about this maybe once a week, something I say is a Rosetta Stone. It's a decoder. You read this article, you understand everything, how they work, how they operate. Even Fox News reports, like, is it